15 years ago, Sarah arrived at her aunt and uncle's home in a suburban area outside of Atlanta, Georgia. She was 20 years old, fresh out of college, deeply passionate about starting her own consulting business, but at that exact moment, financially fragile. She was working two part-time jobs, living in a cramped apartment, and funneling every spare penny into her nascent dreams. The air that year wasn't thick with celebration. It was thick with expectation. Sarah remembers the exact shade of the autumn light falling on the antique dining room table, illuminating the careful arrangement of polished silver and crystal. But she also remembers the coldness in her cousin Michael's eyes when he asked, rather loudly, "So Sarah, still playing entrepreneur? Are you ever going to get a real job with benefits? Something where you can actually afford to buy mom and dad a decent gift this year?" The conversation that followed wasn't merely casual inquiry, it was an interrogation. Her aunt inquired pointedly about her student loans. Her uncle offered a long, unsolicited lecture on the virtue of selling out early for stability. Every question about her future was laced with the assumption of failure. They didn't see ambition. They saw recklessness. They didn't see potential. They saw poverty. Her worth, in their eyes, was directly proportional to her current professional title and the balance in her bank account. Sarah left that dinner feeling physically ill. The humiliation wasn't fleeting. It burrowed deep. It was the sting of realizing that the people who were supposed to be her strongest advocates were instead her harshest critics, and that their love felt fundamentally conditional. They loved the idea of a successful Sarah. They had little patience for the process of becoming her. For the next decade and a half, Sarah poured herself into her work. The memory of that dinner wasn't a weight. It became a sharp, powerful fuel. She built her consulting firm with rigorous dedication, specializing in digital transformation for mid-sized healthcare companies. She navigated economic downturns, sleepless nights, and the crushing pressure of entrepreneurship. Then came the year she finally made it. Not just financially solvent, but truly prosperous. She had built a life of undeniable security and had achieved a level of financial freedom that surpassed any of her relatives. 15 years after that initial humiliation, Sarah drove up the familiar, manicured driveway for the annual Thanksgiving gathering. But this year, she wasn't driving the borrowed, sputtering sedan she'd used before. She pulled up in a sleek, obsidian-black German luxury sedan, the kind that whispers success rather than shouting it, a machine valued well north of $80,000. The reaction was immediate and almost comically theatrical. As she stepped out of the car, adjusting the cuff of her silk blouse, the front door swung open and her cousin Michael, the same Michael who had mocked her ambition, practically levitated down the front steps. "Sarah, look at you. We were just talking about you. Aunt Carol, come quick, you have to see Sarah's new ride. Isn't that incredible?" His voice was thick with an unctuous warmth that had never existed before. The atmosphere inside the house was entirely transformed. The air didn't just hold warmth, it radiated calculated deference. Instead of the pointed questions about her lack of direction, she was bombarded with gushing compliments. "You always had such drive, Sarah. I knew you'd make it big. Tell us about your team. What is the secret sauce?" The conversation at the dinner table that year wasn't about her debt or her uncertain future. It was about her investment strategies. Sarah realized with a quiet, sobering clarity that they weren't seeing her. They were seeing the reflection of their own desires projected onto the shiny, expensive surface of her success. Her success hadn't earned her their love. It had earned her their attention, and worse, their covetousness. The superficial adoration was merely the prelude to the main act. The sudden, overwhelming acceptance was not a gift of reconciliation. It was an entryway for exploitation. If you are finding value in this reflection, please consider subscribing to our channel. It helps us continue to create this content for you and bring these deeply important lessons about self-worth and boundaries to a wider audience. We are grateful for your support. The first attempts at extracting money were subtle, veiled in shared family history and nostalgia. Aunt Carol started talking about the expensive, specialized medical care her elderly golden retriever needed, sighing dramatically about how insurance didn't cover it. Cousin Michael, who had previously dismissed her as a dreamer, now wanted her professional expertise. hinting heavily that she should consult for his failing landscaping business for free, just to help family out. But the manipulations soon escalated. They began manufacturing crises. 3 weeks after Thanksgiving, Sarah received a panicked text from her Uncle James. He claimed he had a sudden, alarming cardiac episode and required a specific, out-of-state procedure that his insurance somehow didn't cover. The amount requested was significant. Sarah, still operating from a place of genuine concern for her uncle's health, started looking into the details. She called her mother, who lived nearby, only to discover that Uncle James had been seen cheerfully playing golf that very morning, seemingly in perfect health. The cardiac crisis was a fabrication, a calculated financial plea designed to capitalize on her fear and guilt. This was followed by cousin Lisa, who claimed her child had an urgent need for private tutoring, arguing that if Sarah truly cared about the family's future generation, she would cover the hefty annual tuition. Then came the plea for an emergency loan to cover a fictitious property tax lien situation that dissolved immediately when Sarah offered to pay the tax office directly. Sarah watched these scenarios unfold with a painful clarity. The humiliation she felt 15 years ago was the pain of rejection. The pain she felt now was the pain of betrayal. She realized that while her external circumstances had changed dramatically, her relatives had not. They still measured her worth by her utility. They had traded scorn for solicitations. This placed Sarah in a complex, agonizing position. She had the means to solve many of their actual problems should they ever surface. But she also understood that enabling manipulation destroys character, both theirs and hers. Giving in would teach them that deceit was a viable strategy, and it would erode the foundation of self-respect she had painstakingly built. The true test of prosperity is not how much money you accumulate, but how gracefully you hold your boundaries when that money attracts conditional attention. Sarah knew a reaction rooted in anger or defensiveness would only feed the cycle of guilt and resentment. She had to respond, but her response needed to be rooted in wisdom, not emotion. It had to be the final word on the matter of her financial responsibility to them. She decided to host a small holiday gathering herself, inviting only the core members of the family who had attempted the most egregious manipulations. It was not a dinner party. It was a reckoning, delivered with gentle strength. When they arrived, they expected gifts, lavish appetizers, and perhaps another opportunity to slip a confidential request into the conversation. Sarah instead served a simple meal and began the conversation not with accusations, but with an observation. "I am so glad we are all here," Sarah began, her voice calm and measured. "It has been wonderful these past few years to feel closer to all of you, but I need to talk about what connection truly means. 15 years ago, I came to Thanksgiving and I felt a deep absence of support. I felt judged for my struggle, and I walked away knowing that my worth was being measured by my lack of success." She paused, letting the silence settle like dust. She looked directly at her Uncle James, who shifted uncomfortably. "Today, I come to you with financial security, and the dialogue has changed entirely. Now, I receive urgent, panicked calls for support that often turn out to be based on inaccurate or incomplete information. I know that you believe you are protecting your own interests, but the consistent attempts to manipulate me, or to exaggerate urgent needs, have severely damaged my trust in our relationship." This was the graceful response, clarity without cruelty. She wasn't yelling or shaming. She was stating a verifiable truth about their behavior and its consequence. She then offered her solution, a testament to true generosity that required accountability. "I have built my life on integrity, and I can only share my resources with integrity. If there is a genuine, documented crisis, a truly necessary medical procedure, a legal emergency, or true, unavoidable hardship, will dedicate a portion of my resources to help, but only through documented, third-party channels. I will not hand over cash for undocumented emergencies. I will pay the hospital, the mechanic, or the landlord directly. I will not enable situations rooted in misrepresentation." She emphasized the final part: "My success is meant to bring me peace, not serve as a lever for guilt or manipulation. Moving forward, our relationship must be built on mutual respect and honesty, not on the anticipation of my next check." The room was silent. The family members, confronted not with anger but with quiet, unbreakable boundaries, had nowhere to hide. They could not argue with the documented facts of their own manufactured crises. Some were immediately defensive, but Sarah held firm. She smiled gently and changed the subject back to genuine family conversation. She had drawn a line in the sand, a line that separated her hard-earned wealth from her unconditional desire to love them, but only if that love was reciprocated with honesty. The beauty of Sarah's grace was that she didn't cut them off entirely. She acknowledged the humanity in their struggle and the reality of their conditional nature, but she refused to let their conditional love define her generosity. She separated the function of her wallet from the value of her presence. Sarah's story is a profound reminder that true financial success is not merely about accumulating resources. It is about protecting your inner peace. We often mistakenly believe that achieving status will somehow fix our dysfunctional family dynamics or earn us the unconditional approval we craved as children. Sarah learned that success often only serves to reveal the existing cracks in those relationships, shining a harsh light on where the love ends and the transaction begins. Grace, in this context, is the quiet strength to look at the truth of a situation, to honor your own worth and boundaries, and to respond with integrity rather than retaliation. It is the wisdom to know that your true wealth is the stability you feel within yourself, far beyond the material items that others envy. Sarah's most valuable possession wasn't the luxury car. It was the impenetrable fortress of her own self-respect. Thank you so much for watching all the way to the end of this deep reflection. We would love to know where you're watching from today. Please share your city or country in the comments below and let us know what you thought of this topic. Have you ever had to set similar boundaries with family members regarding money? Your insights help build this wonderful community.